A quiet afternoon in the Tai Po district shifted without warning. Thick smoke rose above the Wangfut Court residential estate as flames broke through the upper levels of the towers. The fire began shortly before 3 o'clock and spread along the exterior scaffolding that surrounded the buildings during renovation work. Heat intensified. Smoke darkened the sky. Crews raised the highest alert classification as the blaze grew larger across the high-rise structures. The ignition started on a lower section of the scaffolding. Flames climbed upward within minutes. Dry bamboo caught fire quickly and carried heat along the outer frame of the towers. The structure acted like a long vertical path that pulled the blaze higher and higher. Sections of the scaffolding weakened. Entire panels loosened and dropped onto the street. Burning fragments scattered across sidewalks and roadways. The affected towers rose more than 30 stories. Nearly 2,000 units were inside the buildings, each connected by corridors that filled rapidly with smoke. Many residents still remained in their homes when the fire began. Renovation coverings blocked visibility along the exterior, making the initial flames difficult to detect from the ground. By the time fire crews arrived, large portions of the scaffolding were already engulfed. Heat forced firefighters to step back repeatedly as the fire advanced toward upper floors. Inside the buildings, residents struggled to escape. Many were elderly or had limited mobility. They moved through dark hallways filled with heavy smoke. Some used towels or clothing to cover their faces. Others held tightly to railings as they searched for exit points. Visibility dropped to only a few feet in some stairwells. People shouted to each other through the haze, trying to locate family members. Witnesses standing outside reported seeing silhouettes at windows and balconies. Some waved cloths or pointed flashlights toward the street. Voices calling for help echoed between the towers as the fire climbed. Several residents later stated that internal fire alarms did not activate in time. Many were alerted instead by neighbors banging on doors or guards running floor to floor to warn occupants. Lost minutes allowed smoke to spread deeper into the building and made evacuation more chaotic. Crowds gathered below as the fire intensified. A 71-year-old man stood crying near a barricade, telling officers that his wife was still inside on an upper floor. Other families waited close by, uncertain whether their relatives had escaped. Parents held the hands of children. Some residents stood barefoot after rushing down stairwells. Many carried only a small bag of belongings or nothing at all. Emergency crews declared a Level 5 incident the highest classification in Hong Kong. More than 100 fire engines, rescue trucks, and ambulances moved into the district. Crews positioned ladder platforms along the perimeter and attempted to reach windows above the lower floors. Heat, driven upward by the burning scaffolding, forced teams to retreat multiple times. Water streams struck the exterior frame, but flames continued to advance around corners and into interior rooms. Police officers closed major roads and formed wide safety zones around the buildings. Burning bamboo pieces fell from high floors and landed on pavement, creating new hazards for rescue workers. Traffic around the area came to a standstill. Pedestrian bridges filled with onlookers as smoke rose into the evening sky. Crews maintained constant communication to prevent personnel from entering unstable areas. By early evening, structural sections of the scaffolding collapsed. Firefighters focused on preventing the blaze from spreading to adjacent blocks. Inside, the tower's search teams moved floor by floor to locate residents who might still be trapped. Some stairwells remained blocked by debris. Other sections were accessible only with protective gear due to high temperatures. Reports confirmed that at least 13 people had lost their lives, including one firefighter who entered the structure to assist trapped occupants. Many more suffered injuries from burns, smoke inhalation, or falls during evacuation. Dozens were transported to nearby hospitals. Medical teams prepared for incoming patients with additional burn units and respiratory support equipment. Nearly 700 residents were moved to temporary shelters set up inside community centers. Volunteers distributed water-warm meals and blankets. Some residents sat silently on folding chairs. Others spoke in low voices describing moments when they had fled their homes. Personal accounts showed deep distress. Many did not know when they would be able to return. Many feared that their belongings had been destroyed. As night fell, the glow of the fire could still be seen from across the district. Crews continued to extinguish hotspots on multiple floors. Thick smoke drifted over the surrounding neighborhoods. Vehicles carrying emergency lights lined entire blocks. The city prepared for a long night of coordinated operations. Teams focused on monitoring weakened structures and identifying areas at risk of further collapse. Local officials began assessing the extent of the damage. Exterior walls suffered burn marks. Windows shattered on several levels. Interior hallways showed heavy smoke staining. Some apartments were left open to the outside after the collapses of scaffolding sections. Engineers inspected load-bearing areas to determine which parts of the buildings remained stable. Attention turned to the bamboo scaffolding that covered the towers at the time of the fire. Early observations indicated that the dry bamboo contributed significantly to the rapid spread of flames. The structure allowed fire to climb from one floor to another without interruption. Safety experts pointed to the density of the surrounding residential environment and the challenges of renovation work in tall buildings. Questions emerged about inspection procedures, material standards, and whether additional safeguards were needed during large-scale construction. In community centers, volunteers prepared stations for displaced families. Tables held bottled water, simple meals, and basic supplies. People lined up quietly. Some residents asked about relatives still missing. Others expressed concern about where they would sleep in the coming days. The psychological impact of the event was evident as neighbors comforted one another. Accounts of narrow escapes circulated throughout the temporary shelters. Fire crews continued working deep into the night. They checked damaged floors for remaining embers and monitored structural integrity. Several teams used thermal imaging devices to locate hidden hotspots. Officials pledged support for affected residents, including temporary housing, medical assistance, and emergency funding. The full investigation into the cause of the fire would begin once the scene was declared safe. The disaster left a lasting mark on Tai Po. The sight of burning towers and the sound of collapsing scaffolding remained vivid for those who witnessed the event. Longtime residents described the incident as one of the most severe fires the district had experienced in recent years. Community leaders emphasized the need for recovery efforts that addressed both physical loss and emotional trauma. As smoke gradually lifted from the area, the true scale of the damage became clearer. Entire sections of the buildings were no longer habitable. Families faced uncertainty about relocation. Streets, once filled with daily activity, now held emergency barriers and inspection teams. The recovery process promised to be slow and complex. Hong Kong now confronts urgent questions about building safety construction oversight and readiness for high-rise emergencies. Officials stated that all findings from the investigation would guide future safety reforms. Residents hoped that the tragedy would lead to stronger protections and prevent similar events. The community began its long journey toward recovery. The memory of the blaze, the falling scaffolding, and the evacuation will remain with the district long after the flames have faded. The path ahead will require support, resilience, and continued vigilance as families rebuild their lives.